I want to make sure that before our first session ends, you have a chance to hear a little bit from our president, Dr. Coston, D.C. Coston, of course, was at NDSU. He's not from these parts. He's from South Carolina. We're glad you're here. We're so pleased at all the support you've given to this symposium and to the Theodore Roosevelt Center. So greet us, please.
Thank you. I lived in South Carolina for 17 years, but I lived the first 18 years of my life in North Carolina. And it's rather like in this part of the country, there actually are two Carolinas, just like there are two Dakotas, for those of you who are from here. I found it interesting, and it caused me to think back as you were talking to Mr. Lomax's work, particularly in the 1930s, of collecting that material, that in the area where I grew up, John Jacob Niles was doing the exact same thing, traveling through the southern Appalachians, and much of the material and musical literature and knowledge we have from that region is because of exactly the same sort of thing, the worry there being that many people were leaving and moving to the northern industrial cities as a result of the Depression, and Niles attempting to capture that body of information and that body of culture. And it's wonderful that these people were doing that literally throughout the nation, because all of our lives are enriched by that. I'd like to hit a couple of things. One of these is I will be around. Those of you from North Dakota know that Dickinson State has been through some rather interesting challenges over the last couple of years. And I am available to talk with any of you about what we have gone through. Those of you from out of state, if you want a story, I can tell you a story. It's unbelievable. Our credit, because as a result of a lot of activities prior to my being here, Dickinson State's accreditation was placed in a status called on notice. And we went through an incredible transformation trying to come out of that. And let me read, it's done by an organization called the Higher Learning Commission. Their board actually renders your status of accreditation. We remained accredited, but there was this notation called on notice. As this process was winding toward an end a couple of weeks ago, the staff of the Higher Learning Commission writes a recommendation to their board. And I'd like to read just a couple of comments from that staff report. They said, "It is clear that the senior leadership, administration, faculty, and staff at Dickinson State have labored tirelessly to ameliorate each of the concerns enumerated by the Higher Learning Commission Board. Throughout the notice period, Dickinson State University has remained highly transparent, proactive, responsive, and extremely engaged with the Commission. The institution's efforts demonstrate an extraordinary commitment to accreditation, and such are to be commended." 2 weeks ago this afternoon, at 2:59 p.m., not that I wasn't keeping an eye on things, I received an email from the president of the Higher Learning Commission with a letter attached. I shall not read the entire letter. I shall read only one sentence. That sentence said, "At its meeting on October 31st, 2013, the board removed the sanction of notice from the university." It's been an interesting journey, and I would share that with any of you. But I go back to those comments the staff made. I said last evening that Theodore Roosevelt casts a broad and enduring shadow across this institution. And I think that those things that they said about the way this was approached would be very much in the keeping of Roosevelt's sense of working diligently and doing the right things in the right ways. I'd like to conclude by asking you to do two things. One of these is something for you. The other one is something for us. The first of these, the one for you, is I mentioned last night we have the two iPads set out front to take a look at the digital collection. I really want to encourage you to do that. And let me give you just a piece of something that has affected me deeply within the last couple of weeks. I just completed reading an extraordinary book written by one of our faculty members, Dr. Frank Varney, who teaches history here and is also the director of the Theodore Roosevelt Honors Leadership Program. He has just had a book published called General Grant and the Rewriting of History. Much of what we have believed for now 150 years about the concluding chapters of the Civil War came solely from the pen of General Ulysses S. Grant. Materials he wrote as the part of the War Department records, where indeed some things he wrote in that period, and then his memoirs that he wrote some 25 to 30 years later. Frank's work, which grew out of his doctoral dissertation work at Cornell, Frank actually goes, because what has happened over that 150 years, people who have written those stories never went back to any other source documents. They took Grant's work and just kept quoting each other, and everything tracked back to Grant's work. Frank went back and went to source documents and has proceeded to truly turn the Ulysses S. Grant world on its head. Is getting rave reviews. The people who are closely wedded to their long-held beliefs are not particularly happy. But what the reason and what this pointed out to me is the critical importance of the work that's going on here in creating this digital collection. Much of the 20,000 items that are available today and the material that will be coming available have not been readily accessible to scholars or people who care about Roosevelt for over 100 years. They are today. You heard Professor Levine last night talking about using some of those materials, and on a very frequent basis, Sharon comes and talks to me about notable scholars who are coming and looking and finding new insights. What this project is doing is truly democratizing the access to knowledge and information, so that, and as I'm out around North Dakota explaining what this is, I normally say, any one of you sitting in your bathrobe at your kitchen table tonight can pull out your computer and start your own original article or book related to Roosevelt with materials that have heretofore not been looked at through a critical eye. I encourage you, if you haven't taken a chance to look, do it today. Part of it is to help you have a sense of what's there. The other part is to help you understand how extraordinarily easy it is to access materials and then to begin to accumulate things that it would be impossible for you to travel to all those places, and you can literally do it with your fingers. So that's what I'm asking you to do for yourself. What I want to ask you to do for us, last night Clay mentioned it, I mentioned also, that the 2013 session of the Legislative Assembly in North Dakota unleashed an opportunity for us. They, through a set of 3 bills, nothing's always easy, but through a set of 3 bills, they prescribed for Dickinson State University to take the lead in creating a physical Theodore Roosevelt Center in Dickinson. They actually got to the point where they said that it's their intent that this become a Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. As we have talked about it, we understand that when you begin to use that sort of language, that indeed, to some degree, you have a covenant with all 320 million citizens of the United States. It's not just some small little something. This is a huge and momentous undertaking. We're in the early stages of that work. We are in the process, and I mentioned it last night, of choosing a renowned planning firm to work with us to identify the whole the detailed mission, site, what this thing might look like, how it would be organized, staffing, all that stuff, that we hope to have that work accomplished by early summer of 2014 so that we can begin to share it. This coming week we have Dan Jordan, who helped move Monticello to the prominence and the stature that it has today, coming to do a workshop for a number of people. We're moving forward very diligently. One of the things and this is what we're asking of you, each of you cares about Roosevelt from whatever viewpoint you come. You care, you have a deep understanding, and we have a suggestion box out here, and we would dearly love to have your thoughts and ideas, whatever they are, related to this task and this venture that we're off on. We would like to collect your individual and collective insights on some things so that as we proceed through this planning process, we get things right and we do them appropriately and with the seriousness that this task entails. So, two things. Make sure you know how to operate the digital collection by the time you leave. And two, take a few moments during the break, lunch, whatever, to give us your thoughts and ideas related to the Theodore Roosevelt Center, Presidential Library, whatever. We haven't fully decided on where the name goes. But anyway, those are two things I ask of you. Again, thanks for being here. Welcome to Dickinson State. Clay said earlier, you heard Hal Cannon this morning. Bring your friends, neighbors, and anybody you can pick up, and let's have a great time in here tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Coston. That was, thank you. That was just wonderful. That's exactly where we are. So, for 8 years we've been just quietly doing this service work of collecting Roosevelt's papers in digital form and putting the metadata on them so that they're searchable and interpretable. And we have 20,000 or so up on the site, but it's going to hundreds of thousands and eventually probably millions when we get more staff and get more money. And I know we're beginning to sound like an NPR pledge drive here, but if you would just write a check for $3 million, we'll stop talking. But we have to succeed. We've been given this challenge by the state legislature that they will give us $15 million if we raise 3 of it. We cannot fail to do that. This is the make or break moment for the Theodore Roosevelt Center, and we hope that we will be what the Western Folklife Center is in Nevada. We hope that we will be, in some sense, a presidential library that will have national and international implications, that will be a tourist destination, that people will come here because of the great work of the university, of course, but also the Roosevelt Center. And we're so excited, but as you can probably tell, there's a certain sense of urgency now because we can't just keep churning out these great documents. We now have to step up into national prominence, and we intend to do so. And if you have a lot of cash sitting around, that will certainly help. Sharon, we're going to take a 10-minute break here, but Sharon has a couple of announcements as we go into it.